Monkey tennis?
Yabba dabba doo. Oh, sorry, I did do myself all that.
Monkey tennis?
This is mid-more Matt. Let's do slap hands. Idiotic broth.
Monkey tennis?
Please though!
Pop.
Monkey tennis?
You need to press transfer. I like it. It's a clean kill.
Monkey tennis?
Well, we will do that, definitely, yeah. Okay, does Mummy know you do this? The time is 10:30. What a dilbert.
Monkey tennis?
And I know it won't smash, Lynn. Just wrap it in bubble wrap.
So hello and welcome to a very special episode of Monkey Tennis, the Alan Partridge fan podcast. It's almost time to introduce our special guest, but first it occurs to us that there are a lot of free spirits in the room, no, change that to bad attitudes, who won't be able to stop themselves shouting a certain word, a certain man's name, and so we wanted to allow you to get it out of your system before he comes out. So effectively, when I say go, you have 10 seconds to shout down as much as you'd like, so that you don't feel the need later on.
Get it out of your system.
It's a Dan amnesty, or a damnesty, if you will. Think of it like the film The Purge, but instead of 24 hours, it's 10 seconds, and instead of all crimes including murder, it's saying the word Dan. Your damnesty begins now. Dan!
He hasn't seen it. Stop!
No, it's not seen me.
There we go. If you have a question for tonight's guest, we will do our best to throw to the audience at the end if time allows. Our very special guest tonight has starred in Green Wing episodes, The Split, Dirk Gently, was the voice of Postman Pat, and most recently has starred, exec produced and co-written Hang-Ups for Channel 4. And of course, he was the proprietor of Kitchen Planet and organiser of Norfolk's least successful sex festival. Dan Moody on I'm Alan Partridge. Please give it up for Stephen Mangan.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey. It's raining.
Hello, sir.
There's a chocolate orange for you there, Stephen. You can enjoy that.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Hello, hi and welcome.
That was the weirdest 10 seconds of my life.
I feel like that's basically been perhaps your last 20 years condensed into a very short period of time. What was the experience like shooting it?
You go through all the scenes and you improvise and all the good stuff stays in and all the bad stuff gets chucked out. But I was supposed to be rehearsing in Clapham and they were doing this up on Tottenham Court Road. We were doing this. So I had a moped at the time and I was literally herring from one venue to the other, pleading with the director of the play to let me have more time, which he wouldn't do. So I missed some of the rehearsal period. So, for example, I got there one day and someone said, yeah, we did an improvisation this morning. And Alan says, I've got your kids, Dan, I've got your kids. So I wasn't part of that scene at all, that improv. Other scenes I was heavily involved in, rehearsing, and I'm very proud of a couple of the jokes that I came up in.
What wouldn't we have had without you then? What
well,
can you remember the bit?
Okay, the main reason I came tonight was to right a terrible wrong. Because I remember watching the DVD extras of this, and someone, I'm not going to say who, Felicity Montague, claiming that she came up with Sex Festival. Oh. That's my line. That is my line. I'm very proud of that. But I think it was one of those things that happens to everyone where you say it and no one really hears it because it sort of gets lost in the room, and then the person next to you says the same thing louder and everyone laughs. And you're there going, that was my joke. So that and a few other things, Sedan of Moody Shire and stuff like that. But and then we were going to film it that Friday night, but Steve got ill.
For the benefits of podcast listeners.
I don't know. I mean, if we should, but yeah, because there was a big insurance claim about this. In a hotel room with some friends, and we had to cancel that night, which was a godsend to me because I missed half the rehearsals. So in fact, that episode was then shot several weeks later, and we had another go at rehearsing. So it was the only episode, I think, in all of those two series that got 2 bites of the cherry. And then filming it on the night was a really weird experience because it was filmed in front of a live audience, and I've never done that before, and I'd never done it since.
I believe I was in that audience, actually.
Were you?
There we go. Hands across the past.
Oh, there you go. And I just remember really being confused because normally when you film comedy on television, there's nobody there. and you hope it's funny, but you're not there when people watch it 9 months later in their living rooms and they laugh or they don't laugh. You go on your own instinct. But of course, in filming in front of an audience, they are there and you can hear them laugh. And some of the sets, as you know, like the garage set, is round the back. So we can't see the audience, but you can hear them laugh. And it was really disconcerting, and I wasn't really experienced at that time, and I found it, very confusing. And I think that scene we did, the links, Java, Voodoo, got it coming out of my taps, all that stuff, was, in my memory, the first scene we did, and I was shitting myself.
Your face indicates that a little bit, I think.
And of course, Steve then was far too young to play Partridge, so had to have all this layer up prosthetic stuff put on his face, and he looked quite odd close up, I'm not going to lie. But yeah.
And so, what sort of character direction was there initially? Like, what were you told about Dan? Can you remember before you went into rehearsal?
I don't remember a lot. I just remember that it was somebody that it was like Alan wanted to be. He sort of could carry it off in a way. He had a confidence and a cockiness that Alan aspired to. And obviously they had all the same interests, and so that was already set in stone. I think the rest of it we just worked on as it went along. I mean, I think they already knew that it was going to be an invitation to actually, I don't know if the kitchen worktop was always the destination. But I mean, the way they work is so interesting because you don't know how much is pre-thought of, how much they're waiting for you to come up with in the room. And obviously some stuff has to be filmed in advance. The car park scene, for example. And as I'm sure you're aware, that was not scripted in that way at all. He wasn't supposed to go on and on shouting Dan. That's something he just did on the day. And I'm sure, again, something I'm sure you all know is that if you look at Felicity and Amelia in the background, they turn away laughing halfway through because they don't.
Which I've heard them claim was not corpsing.
Oh, it's corpsing.
We did call bullshit on that.
In fact, the other day, for a friend who was she was giving the best woman speech at a wedding, she asked, would I recreate the car park scene? So we went to the Regent's Park Zoo car park, and I had to stand there while she shouted Dan at me. A whole coachload of Korean tourists got off a very large bus.
One theory we'd had as well, which you may be able to prove or disprove, is we were trying to work out whether Dan knew about Alan beforehand and has gone to the petrol station to target him, or whether that was a chance encounter.
No, I don't think he did. I think, in my mind, the fact they both drive Lexi, and I drove one of those for a while. Actually, that made everything much worse. Traffic lights on hot days with the sun, with the window down, and a cyclist pulls up and starts shouting Dan at you through the window. No, I think the fact they both drive, I think he's as delighted as Dan, as Alan, that there's a connection there, and I think he sees a route to sex.
Fair enough. We're on to yours.
We're just going to kind of spread the interview further down the table away from you so nobody feels left out.
Okay.
So, are there any scenes or ideas from the episode that didn't make it to screen? Like any cut scenes that we didn't see in the episode or didn't make it to outtakes on the DVDs or anything like that?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I can remember.
There might be some stuff on a cutting room floor.
Oh, there would definitely have been. I mean, there would definitely have been, because you'd meet every day. You'd sit in it was abandoned office in Tottenham Court Road, just where next to where the BFI now is on Stephen Street. Yeah. And we were up in that, huge floor with no one else on it. And we would sit there all, and just make stuff up, some of which was then thought will be in it, and then on the day was cut. And all I remember is that face, that grin I give him at the end. Was they liked that from the beginning?
Yeah, a particular favourite moment.
And the single hand Sue scene, the buffet scene there. And actually, my wife used to read the shipping forecast. You know that? That was one of her jobs. The woman who played my wife, she used to dash off in the middle of the night from her home to the BBC to get there for 5 to 12 and read the shipping forecast. Yeah, there you go. But I know cutscenes. I can't. I do look like I've got wood in that one, actually.
Not knob or knee. We playing that again.
Yeah.
So we were also discussing, with obviously the shouting of Dan, is this possibly the first time that a catchphrase aimed at an actor has never actually been said by the actor?
Yeah, quite possibly.
examples.
Obviously, because yes, it's not something that I ever said, and I found myself at festivals with the entire, several thousand large audience all shouting.
All it
Dan.
takes is one person to.
All it takes is one person, and for me to be raised and well lit, and a lot of pointing. Through student unions everywhere, But you're right. I can't think of another one.
We couldn't come up with anything. I don't know if anyone else.
Alan finally did get a world first in that case.
He finally did a broadcast first. Okay, here's a large question then. Would you ever consider reprising the Dan role if it was offered? Because we were thinking we could maybe imagine him popping up in a Mid-Morning Matters or something like that, maybe.
Wow, yeah. Well, it was left so badly. I mean, he didn't go that well at the end, did it? And
there could have been a sex festival off camera that we never saw.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Okay. I mean, yes. Of course, I'd love to work with him. I'm a genuine fan, and it's very exciting as an actor to get to be asked in the things you love.
Yeah.
You can't believe your luck. So, if I had to, the other thing is my cousin in Ireland has just opened a kitchen fitting business. Yes,
it's the Lexus and now this.
It's called the Kitchen Port, which I think is
close enough.
Well, so I think that more likely than appearing with Alan Partridge is appearing in some shady advertising for my cousin's kitchen outfit. Yeah.
Wow, good to know. So you say you were a fan of kind of the Alan output before you'd been in the show. Have you kind of kept up to date with all of Alan's more recent output, and are you a fan of that?
I haven't watched them all, but I watch them if they're on. I personally feel the audiobook that was done, his performance and the writing on that, I think is one of the greatest comic performances and along with the writing ever of anything.
I think we'd all agree. I think
it's amazing.
Partridge, it's much better to listen to it in audio.
It's amazing, and it's there's so much of it, and the quality is so brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, as you say, I've just been involved in a series that we've written on at the moment on Channel 4. We had the Gibbons brothers in to help write a little, just a bit of extra material. I'm a fan, but I cannot match the knowledge that you gentlemen have shown.
Well, it's amazing what you can find on Wikipedia.
And maybe that's a good thing, arguably.
Yeah. Nick, over to you, I think.
How you talked about improvising. How do you find working in a kind of an improvisation environment versus where you have a script and everything's kind of laid out? How do you find those two different styles? And which do you prefer?
I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, and that's why Hang Ups was done in that way. I think often you meet actors, you might meet them, when having breakfast in the morning when you get to set, or the makeup room or whatever, who are funny and interesting, and there's something really unique about them. And sometimes with comedy, the script has been worked on to death. You are all sent the script ahead of time. You've read the scene dozens of times. You've practiced your lines. You get together, and it kills that spark that is so often important. The first time, it's like when you tell a joke for the first time in the pub and everyone laughs, and then later you say, and I said this, it's never as funny again, because there's something about the honest moment you say it and the instant reaction that's just beautiful. So I'm a huge fan of it, and it's very rare for it to be used on screen. I mean, Partridge, they used improvisation to help write the scripts, which were then definitely scripts. Green Wing, we did the same thing. And it's great to have an input, but it's very hard to use it on screen because often the format just doesn't allow it. We're sitting on the couch there, we're improvising, and then we get up and move, and you want to get rid of all that stuff in the middle. It's very hard to edit it out. So
probably why we spot a lot of continuity errors in it.
Yeah, of course. But I think it's great when you can get an actor, or to bring the thing about them that's so unique and interesting. And I think that's what improvisation allows it to do. I did a film called Festival, which is set at the Edinburgh Festival, starring Raquel Cassidy as well as my assistant. And I sort of play a Steve Coogan. I mean, it was written, the whole thing was written by his former assistant. So, I mean, I'll never admit that if he asks me. And he has asked me, and I didn't admit it was him. But
You know this is being recorded, right?
yeah, he won't listen to it. I'm sure he won't listen to this. It's not you, Steve. Everything is about you. But it's him. I don't know where I'm going with that now. But yeah, I think it's glorious. When you get, there are some brilliant actors who are amazing actors who just can't improvise at all. But if you work with people and you know the people who like it, it's also more fun because you turn up on the day and you don't know what's going to happen. It's terrifying because you know you're in a comedy and there are no jokes yet, and you know there are supposed to be jokes at some point, and you know they're going to have to come today, and you're going to have to help provide them. But it's just joyful because people are so talented. There are some really talented people out there, and they can come up with stuff that you would never have written in a million years. And I think if you can harness that, which Armando has done for years brilliantly, it's priceless.
You've spoken about Hang-Ups, which is obviously kind of your most recent output. I wonder if you could talk about kind of the history of that, how that project kind of came to be, and just kind of tell us about that. Yeah,
Hang-Ups, I have a production company with my wife, and we were offered by Fremantle Media, who we at the time had a distribution deal with. They said, would you like to remake Web Therapy, the Lisa Kudrow Showtime show? And I said, no, we wouldn't want to do that, because I never understand why stuff is remade in other countries. I've just spent 5 years in Episodes, which is all about how if you make something in another country, it can be an absolute disaster. So, but then the more I thought about it, the more I watched it, I realised it actually did provide a format for improvisation that's really rare. Because it's Skype calls, FaceTime calls, you can edit it very simply. It's really the editing techniques of a panel show. Any of you who've been to recordings of panel shows, you know they can be 2.5 hours long. On screen, if it's a commercial station, they might be 23 or 24 minutes long. So a huge amount of stuff is thrown out. So the format of FaceTime calls, Skype calls, allows you to improvise. I mean, there's a scene we did with Sarah Hadland in Hang-Ups. The first take was 34 minutes long. The scene in the show is 90 seconds. We partly let it go on that long because she was being so funny. We just didn't want to stop her. So I thought it was the idea is good of a web therapy therapist, but it was the mechanics of how you shoot that really appealed to me, because I thought we could actually start again, because Lisa had already done such a brilliant show. I didn't want to do an imitation of it. That's there. She was such a well-loved and good show. I could almost come up with something entirely new and British and more modern, because her show's maybe 5 or more years old now.
And in terms of the cast list, you've got an incredibly impressive cast. Did you get everyone you wanted? Did you just have this incredible list of people and everyone just said yes? Or
we had one person we wanted who couldn't or didn't want to do it. I think they were scared about improvising, but everyone else we asked did it. And it was just an excuse for me to ask all the people I think are amazing at that. Not all of them, because there's plenty more out there for more series, but there are all the people that I really wanted to work with who I knew could do that sort of thing really well. And they all wanted different levels of support. Some people wanted stuff written and wanted a huge amount of help. Other people, Kevin Eldon said, can I just make up my own character and come along? We went, yeah, all right. Of course you did. Kevin Eldon, you're fine. I wanted to work with Richard E. Grant. I thought he would be brilliant as a therapist, because I think I could see that was where Withnail might have ended up if he'd cleaned himself up one day. And we also had to, lose several brilliant performances. We just didn't have time for them. The way the show worked out in the end, partly I think because the channel was slightly nervous that there wouldn't be enough funny stuff. We ended up probably with more plot than we were hoping to. So in a way we were servicing some of that sometimes. But that's, it's a really unusual way of working. I don't think many people have made shows in that way. So everyone's learning the whole time. And we have certainly... But yeah, we had to lose several BAFTA winners who never made it to the, some awkward phone calls had to be made to friends of mine and to very fine actors. So, but yeah, it was an absolute treat all the way along. And hats off to Channel 4 for taking that leap, because it's, you're going along and saying, we're going to make a whole series. There are no jokes written yet, but trust us, we will come up with some along the way.
And you've mentioned kind of episodes and working with Matt LeBlanc, who's obviously been in Top Gear. Would you host Top Gear?
I wouldn't host it because I don't know anything about cars.
Okay.
I'm rubbish at cars, but I went on it recently. I don't think it's been aired yet.
Oh, right.
And I had to put up with a lot of macho bullshit from Matt about how I was never going to beat his time and running over before I was driving off trying to grab my willy and stuff. For goodness sake. It was an absolute joy. It was all the fun you could imagine that is to get in a car. And they're quite a fast car this year. Oh my God. I would still be out there now trying to beat my lap. I was that into it. But no, I wouldn't host it.
There's a real sort of rhythm and quite often a frantic pace to hang-ups. How intentional is that? Is that what you set out the show to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wanted to show... The show is partly about therapy, it's partly about families, it's partly about technology. It's about how we all live now through technology. We communicate through technology. We speak on Skype and FaceTime, and we email, we text, we WhatsApp, we Instagram, we Snap, all the rest of it. And therapy, of course, is supposed to be this moment you take out of your life, where you step aside and you contemplate in a measured way where you are. And we wanted to set that against the way we live now, which is so frantic. So the show is deliberately shot through all those devices, phones, laptops, security cameras, helmet cams on bikes, all that stuff. When those devices are shut in the show, so for example, in the first episode, Catherine Parkinson, who plays my wife, comes into our bedroom and shuts my laptop. That then is an opportunity for the characters to have a bit of real intimacy. So we almost have sex. In quite a perfunctory way, but still. And then her phone goes, she picks it up, and we're off again into the madness. So absolutely, it was always part of the therapy sessions were not, it's not like in treatment, it's not like a realistic show about therapy would be, which is 50 minutes of people sitting around not saying a lot most of the time, because we felt that wouldn't really work in a 23-minute comedy. So yes, it was deliberately, and also partly to get through all the storylines, to get through all the characters, to get, and also the other thing we were worried about was it's very static. There's two cameras, and you've got a choice between the shot of one person, the shot of the other person, or both on screen at the same time. All those tricks that all TV shows use of wide shots, close in, tracking shots, to give it some variety, to keep you interested, to a camera will, on a dramatic moment, a camera will push in if a character is realising something or something is happening to them, or it will pull out if they're feeling lonely or abandoned or empty. The way the camera moves is letting the audience know how they should be feeling about a scene. We don't have that ability in our show. So we just didn't want it to become claustrophobic and boring, that there was just this shot, that shot, and hopefully people don't notice it. So we stick in as many moving shots as we can, and we try and keep the pace up as fast as possible.
Now, apart from Sir Dansworth and Moody-shire, what comedy role are you most proud of?
This is absolutely up there, and I think Guy Secretan, is probably the other one that I... partly because they were so early on in my career, and it's so exciting. You can't believe your luck. You can't believe that you're getting to do... You can't believe you're getting to work with the people that you admire. I think it doesn't matter what job you do. If you've looked up to people for being good at what they do, and someone like Armando and Peter Bayham were always massive heroes of mine, and Steve, to be sitting there with an erection on a sofa with them is thrilling. It's really exciting. And Green Wing was the same. We had a huge input into those characters. We were really encouraged to be part of that process. And there were 9 writers on Green Wing. They would all be told, we're doing a scene about this. And all 9 would write a version of that scene. We'd then get together. We'd read every single version. we'd then get up and we'd improvise it. So from those 10 different things, they would then collate them into one scene. Wow. It's the most expensive comedy Channel 4 have ever made. Because we would film Green Wing for 3 weeks and then we'd have a week off. We would get together. I mean, anyone who works in TV knows that's insane. It's insane. I mean, the series would take us 9 months to film it. But I sometimes, sometimes you get what you pay for. And I think we were lucky. We had someone like Victoria Pyle. We were lucky to get that incredible cast. All, Michelle Gomez, Mark Heap. There's just Carl Theobald. There are just some incredible actors in there. So it was one of those things where everything just comes together, and it's just great fun to make. Because some of the things that turn out really well are sometimes not great fun to make. But Green Wing, certainly was.
Was there ever a discussion that you would be the singing voice of Postman Pat?
You think I'm quite a sore subject here?
Well, actually, the original question on here was, were you annoyed that Ronan Keating got to be the singing voice of Postman Pat?
Well, I read the script and I was offered the part, and the script has songs in it sung by Pat. Now, I think we'd all assume that if you're playing Pat, you're going to be singing the songs. So I went into my first recording and the director said to me, "Great news, we've got Gary Barlow to sing the songs." And obviously my face dropped. He went, Would you want to sing the songs? If you want to sing the songs, you can sing the songs. I said, "You've got fucking Gary Barlow. You don't want me singing them." Gary, for some reason, I doubt tax-related, had to drop out. So Ronan came in, and he does a fine job. But I think it must confuse people to this day why Pat speaks in a northern accent and he sings in an Irish accent.
Obviously, Hang Ups is going out at the moment. Is there anything that you're working on at the moment that you can share with us, tell us about?
At the moment, I can't really tell you. I mean, yes, I can. I'm doing a Sky show about painting. Tell
us more.
It is funny. It is funny because I know nothing about painting whatsoever. It's an established Sky show called Portrait Artist of the Year and Landscape Artist of the Year, hosted until this year by Joan Bakewell and Frank Skinner. It's now hosted by Joan Bakewell and Stephen Mangan. So we've just finished filming that. We'll be doing another series of that next year. I did a drama for the BBC called The Split, in which I play a lawyer who disappoints his wife, and apparently I disappointed a lot of the public in Britain because I get a lot of people coming up to me and saying, if people haven't seen it, I cheat on, my character cheats on my wife Nicola Walker in it, and a lot of people have been coming up to me and shouting at me, "How can you cheat on Nicola Walker?"
Does it make you wistful for the glory days of Dan?
Well, yeah, it really does. Because I didn't cheat on Nicola Walker. But anyway, we won't get into all that. So we're doing another series of that next year. I am writing a couple of other things, but I can't reveal what they are yet. And I'm probably doing something in the theatre the second half of next year. In fact, I am, but I can't reveal that either because they want the big reveal. What I can probably reveal is that I will be at the... what's it called? The Royal Albert Hall, that's right. With the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, we're doing a version of Guys and Dolls in October with the weirdest, most eclectic cast ever. I'm playing the narrator, who doesn't normally appear, but I think they've cut a lot of it out. So I have to come on every now and again and go, and now we've moved to this bit of the story. But it has Adrian Lester as Skye, Jason Manford as Nathan, Meow Meow as Adelaide, and Laura Pulver as Sarah. So that's happening in October.
Great. Finally from us, listeners to our podcast will know that 99% of our research comes from just reading things on Wikipedia and IMDb. So with that in mind, can you please confirm if the following fact from your IMDb is true?
Okay.
IMDb claims that you formed a prog rock band in the early 90s called Aragon. The band recorded one album called The Wizard's Dream with 4 tracks, including a 15-minute epic called The Dragon. Is this true? And if so, where can these recordings be found?
It's not true.
Oh.
It was the 80s. Everything else is true.
Amazing.
Yeah. I was in a band called Aragon. I played the keyboards. We recorded an album that we've made about 12 cassettes of. I had 2 keyboards. I had one here. Yes, was a 15-minute song called The Dragon, which was, it was a reflection, it was an allegory on the troubles of Northern Ireland.
And
Reflections of the Reaper was another song. Fooled by the Fire. And I can't remember what the fourth song was.
I mean, I'm assuming this is all available to listen to on Spotify.
No, you can't. Luckily, you can't find it. And I actually was clearing out some storage the other day and I found the cassette. And although I was on the Alan Carr show once and he had got hold of a copy of it, and he played it, and this is school kids doing prog, to the Alan Carr audience, it didn't go down massively well, I have to say.
I'm thinking we could do podcast special. We could put the whole album into an episode if you like.
We'll do it.
Stuart
We're happy to
McConey
do
does
that.
a thing called The Freak Show on Six Music, and he's tried to get me on that with it. I'm not having it. I'm not having it.
did you listen to it?
Did I listen the other day?
Yeah.
I can't find a cassette player.
Our producer Jed will have one of those. So
Great,
we can
good for
hook you up
Jed,
with
good for
that.
Jed.
So that brings us to the end of our questions. I think we've got a little bit of time, and there are some people, I believe, nearby with roving mics. So if anyone has got a question, we might need a little bit of house light as well, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If anyone has a question, raise your hands,
And just
we'll
wait for the mic to get to you.
we'll
Anyone?
get to you. We're
One
all
of you
good.
must. Come on, this is your opportunity to
We've
ask it.
satisfied.
We've got one at the back
There we
there.
go.
Have you ever discovered that you were somebody wild card in a relationship where they're allowed to sleep with you out of wedlock?
Sorry, for context, that's my wife asking that.
There is a reason for me to ask this question that won't upset my husband, so...
Have I ever discovered that I'm a wild card in a relationship, that like a free pass?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was on an episode of Friends. You would think with your career you'd be familiar with Friends.
Yeah, no, I've heard of it. No. Why?